Ladies and gents, my name is Matt Locke and you're listening to, and perhaps watching, the Unleashing Potential podcast. It's in these episodes that I chat with a range of progressive individuals who are unleashing their potential on the world around them at work and in life. With that said, I'm glad you're here so you can join me as we take a deep dive with today's guest. Filipa, welcome back to the podcast. It's great to have you with us today. How are you doing?
Thank you. Very good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. I'm really excited to dive into today's conversation. It's a subject that you and I have talked about before, and I know it's one that relates to you and I both personally, but as I suspect anyone listening to this will be able to relate to it as well. But before we start, I mean, you are, without question, one of Australia's leading functional medicine practitioners, which is why we're very, very lucky to have you with us today. But for those who are not familiar with functional medicine, could you maybe just tell us a little bit about that so that we can have a baseline before we move on to talk about sleep?
Yeah, cool. So functional medicine it sits in the natural therapies, and it's about, rather than treating symptoms, we want to treat the root cause of health issues. So it's different to, say, a GP. GPs, medical specialists, amazing testing, which is great and needed, but they're really testing for diseases and like nasty conditions, rather than functional medicine side of things is looking for those functional imbalances in the body systems and preventing from things like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all that sort of stuff before those niggly little symptoms get worse.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So very much adopting a much more preventative and holistic approach to wellness.
Yes. Yeah. So we do use medicines, natural medicines, not pharmaceuticals, but really like the root cause of people's health issues goes far beyond just taking a bunch of supplements to restore the body. You then need to look at sleep, nutrition, lifestyle, relationships, the way that you think and feel and behave. So that is like the ultimate of functional medicine, looking at all those areas.
Absolutely, you are speaking my language now. Amongst the sort of the three headlines under which we operate, and that's mind, and that's certainly for us, that's anything to do with the head, basically, and that could be, talking about the self-determination theory from the world of positive psychology, reframing negative self-talk, the whole intrinsic motivation piece, purpose, our why. We then have certainly maintenance, which absolutely relates to a lot of what you're talking about, maintaining sort of all aspects of fundamental lifestyle topics. And, as you said, nutrition, sleep, stress management, and so on. And then, of course, movement from our perspective, super important. But the purpose of today, and I know that we could talk about a number of those topics in great detail, and I would love to do so. But for today, the idea was to really take a deep dive into something that eludes many people, myself included, and has all sorts of ripple effects for basically every aspect of our life. And of course, what I'm talking about is sleep. Which is
everyone does it or should do it.
Well, that's right. Yeah, at some stage we do it, but we should probably do more of it, most of us, and have a higher level of quality sleep for sure. But I think it's really interesting to start with, and I know we're going to dive into how, some tips, tricks, and techniques that you have for how to sleep better, and that's really important. But it's probably better to start with, I think, why it's so important that we improve our sleep.
Yeah. So from a functional medicine sort of healing perspective, our body repairs when we're asleep. So if you're not sleeping and sleeping the amount that your body needs, then issues are going to happen. So your body can start breaking down, your immune system becomes suppressed, your neurotransmitters, like your brain literally becomes damaged when you're not sleeping. Then you've got things like your stress hormones can go out of whack, your circadian rhythm will go out of whack, and that can affect other things throughout the day. So your metabolism, your mood. It's just so it's important. It's so important. And that is why we are programmed to sleep, so that we can function when we're awake.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some big ticket items in there, right?
Yeah.
And so for the...
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add too, I don't know, maybe this might be a question that you're going to ask later, like how long should you sleep? But theoretically, between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is when physical repair happens, and then 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is when psychological, mental repair happens. So kind of goes along with my point just there, that both of those things are going to be worked upon, repaired upon when we're asleep. If we're not, if we're going to bed too late, body will start breaking down. If you're waking up in the early hours of the morning, or maybe waking up really early because you've got an action-packed life, I don't know, then that's where mental health can actually start suffering too.
Sure, understood. So you named some big ticket items there from a why we sleep. So let's just think about the implications therefore. If we break those down, I mean, you mentioned hormones, for example, as one. So what are the ramifications therefore of not sleeping adequately, not getting the sleep we need? Let's sort of dive into each of those subjects. So from a hormonal perspective, what are the actual implications? Because I can understand, of course, it could lead to hormone imbalance, for example, but I don't know what that looks like. How would that present itself? What are the implications of that? Why does that matter? For example.
Yeah. So just a little bit, I try not to do too much science. My husband, Chris, who is my business partner also, so it's like too much science.
No. Well, if you're happy to, we can do science.
But I will contextualize that a little bit. So when the sun goes down, you have a hormone, melatonin, starts secreting. And then at the same time, your stress hormone, cortisol, should start dropping as well. So it's almost like cortisol and melatonin are always doing this balancing act. So sun goes down, cortisol drops, melatonin rises, you then go to sleep, and that melatonin stays up, or it's secreting throughout the night until, it starts to deplete after 12 midnight, 2 a.m. slowly starts to come down. Sun rises, cortisol also rises, melatonin drops, then you wake up. And so from a hormonal perspective, now we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but what causes poor sleep and how can you fix it? But basically, if you're staying up too late on screens, not getting enough sunlight throughout the day, that's going to affect your ability to produce melatonin, which is then going to cause your body to be really stressed out, which will cause cortisol to rise. And also too, if you have a really stressful life or lifestyle, then that's going to suppress your ability to produce melatonin. So then I guess there's this imbalance between your sleepy hormone and your stress hormone, and often the stress hormone wins.
Thank you for dumbing it down for me.
And so when I talk about hormonal imbalances, I mean, there's so many different types of hormones, but probably from a stress point of view, your adrenal glands that secrete your stress hormones will start acting dysfunctionally. And so symptoms or common symptoms, do you want me to talk about symptoms?
Sure, can, absolutely.
What does that look like?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So it would look like if someone's having stress hormone imbalance issues, I often see people who are exhausted or just energy isn't as good as what it used to be. Very mental health side of things too. So you might feel anxious or full-blown anxiety, depression, or just moody. I used to call myself the dragon mum because I had a lot of these issues. And sometimes my kids joke around, or they're being serious. Mum, you're turning into a dragon mum again. But it's like that irritability, snappiness. So you don't necessarily need to have a diagnosed anxiety or depression disorder. It literally could show up that you're just a bit of an angry person or a bit of a moody person. Some other things too. So the further these hormonal imbalances become, that's where you can actually start having proper insomnia. So it's no longer just about not going to bed on time. It's literally that when you put your head on the pillow, you can't go to sleep, or you might fall asleep because you're so exhausted, but you're waking up throughout the night, and not being able to fall back to sleep, or having a restless sleep. There's so many different symptoms that show up. So female or male sex hormone issues, low libido for women, PMS, infertility even. Metabolism can become disrupted. So people who are not sleeping very well or really stressed often find that they carry a lot of fat around the belly. It's what I call the stress fat. And, you know, no matter what they do, they used to do their diets or change their exercise regime. And those things don't work anymore to shift fat because the metabolism is just kind of like shut down.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. Even when I was at my most lean, and I'm conscious I'm not fat now, but when I was really doing the ultra endurance stuff, I was really lean, really lean. And but I always had just a little bit of fat retained around my tummy. And I remember a sports nutritionist saying to me at the time, she said, actually, I think it's your sleep. I think it's this elevated cortisol levels and so on and so on. She said, I'm pretty sure that's what it is, because it's not your diet. It's not your, clearly not your training. It's none of those things. And it made a lot of sense. Yeah. But understanding the science, and from what you're saying, for example,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's very real, isn't it? Something,
It
I mean,
is.
everything you're saying is tangible and real. And I would imagine people have just sort of gone through sort of cherry picking. They go, oh yeah, that's me, from what you said. Oh, well, yeah, that's me. Well, that's me. And I guess some of them are hard to pick, aren't they? Because they can be based, they can be founded in other issues as well. So it might not be
Yeah.
this, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
these are all very real and very relatable subjects. And I say that as someone who I would suggest, I mean, it sounds so much more serious when you say I'm a chronic poor sleeper, but I am, because it's been for years. And so technically it's chronic. But I mean, certainly in the modern world that we live in, with all of the, I guess there's so many inputs, so many touch points in our lives. There's so many different forms of communication, and sure, that the devices, the phones, there's so many things pinging, binging, vibrating, and doing all those things that they do. And for sure, I think it seems to me that sleep is, you know, a growing issue, a growing challenge, and certainly thankfully, lots of businesses are starting to focus more on that. And there's a lot, like mental health, there's a far greater awareness around it.
Yeah. I found that it was so pre-kids, I had no issues with sleep really at all. And then I started having babies. And of course, you know, babies will disrupt your sleep anyway. But it was more that it was affecting my stress hormones. Being a mom, I had a lot of issues. I had a really traumatic birth, lots of internal, like physical trauma, lots of antibiotics that just ruined my gut health. Then add in a baby that screamed unless she was asleep, not feeding properly, and trying to be a new mom and work and build a business and all that sort of stuff. And my husband was beautiful, actually, that I was not. I'm like dragon mom and dragon wife. And so then, like, that big snowball effect really started affecting my sleep. I even found, like, if I had to get up once in the night to feed my baby, that whole next day, it was just a wipeout for me. So it was clear to me that I might have been sleeping, like, in terms of hours, but I just wasn't getting restful sleep, and my body wasn't able to repair properly.
Right. Doesn't sound like a bunch of fun. Well, so all right. So we've established why we need to sleep, why humans do sleep, in fact, why it's so important. I mean, it's an obvious question to ask at a very basic level, I understand. But in terms of what should we be aiming for in a perfect world, in terms of regular quality sleep each night, what's the target?
I always get this question.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think
And
it's. I mean, I
it's,
think I know the answer, but I think a lot of people, yeah, a lot of people don't, and think, yeah, no, what I can get by on 5 hours. I can get by on
yes.
5.5, 6 hours. You know, no problem. I can perform absolutely at my peak with just 6 hours sleep, because I'm superhuman and I'm a robot. However, I think you're about to burst that little bubble, aren't you?
Yes and no. I think it's really individual for each person, the way that
Sure.
you're made up. Like, based on science and research, you want to aim for between 7 to 9 hours.
Yep.
And when that happens, again, it's kind of personal too. But what I said before, that physical repair happens between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And then that mental, emotional, psychological repair between 12 and 6 a.m. So you want to try and get that 7 to 9 hours somewhere between that time frame. But then there's ways that you can, I guess, work out how much sleep you need, and also your ideal pattern. So you mentioned before apps and gadgets. I don't know if you're referring to the, like, sleep ones.
Oh, well, I was actually talking about the distracting,
Oh, this.
the whole blue light thing, but nonetheless, screens and having emails pop in and messages, and they're just, they're constantly, the brains keep spinning because it's being engaged with all these different things. But no, for sure, we can talk about some of the apps that are very
Yeah.
useful,
Okay.
other than they still
Yeah.
involve using your phone or iPad or something.
I know, right? That's what that's like my husband Chris loves his sleep app. I'm a I'm a bit of a back in the 1800s type girl. I'm not very good with technology. So I don't less apps for me, the better for my sanity, I think, for my
Sure.
mental health. But he loves his app. And so, and there's, which one does he use? Pillow app, but there's a few different ones. You can get ones connected to your, see, I don't even know these words.
Yeah, no, there are loads. I mean, you've got, I
All
think
that
some of the
sort of
main ones,
stuff.
Calm, I think, is one of the biggest ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heard something that's 84 million users or something.
Oh wow,
Significant.
yeah, okay, so super popular. So there's different apps that you can use that will record how long you sleep, when you get deep sleep, when you get the REM sleep, the light sleep, and then over the course of a few months, it can then scientifically, or like from that data, work out how much sleep your ideal sleep is, and like the time frame that you get the best sleep. The old school way would be go to bed, don't set your alarm, and see what time you just naturally wake up. Now, if you have sleep issues and you're kind of waking up all night anyway, I mean, that's not necessarily going to be the best way for you to work that out. But if you're someone who can fall asleep and you're not waking up a lot during the nighttime, just see, like, you're setting your alarm too early in the day. In the morning, do you need more sleep?
I take it as a baseline that would require you go to bed at the same time every night.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So you want to go to bed at the same time every night, and then don't set your alarm. So you might have to do it on the weekend. If you're setting your alarm to get up for work or something, then that's not necessarily going to work. Do it over the course.
Filipa said,
I'm 2 hours late because I needed to sleep. But that's how I sleep. I wake up when my body tells me it's time to wake up. And in the winter, it's really interesting. So seasonal as well. The way that our bodies are programmed is that we actually do need and want more sleep during the winter times when it's a bit colder and darker, as opposed to in the summer. A lot of people, if they're like living on their natural rhythm, they will generally wake up earlier and maybe even go to bed later. So
sure.
yeah, I'm gonna say, like, sometimes it's 7:30 or 7:45, and I'm like, whoa, holy smokes, I gotta get the kids ready for school and myself ready for my consult.
But you feel great because you're well rested.
I feel good. I will have the best day. Like, my energy is very balanced, mood. I don't know, maybe you need to ask my kids and hubby about that one, but I will feel much more balanced throughout the day if I don't set an alarm.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I got to be honest. I find there's something psychological about not setting alarm anyway. I'm one of those who will often wake up 10 minutes before the alarm, and I've done that all my life. So something somewhere in my subconscious there's a little clock ticking away, and it knows that it's going to be about time the alarm goes off. And I personally I don't like waking up to an alarm because you kind of wake up with a jolt. So I think that's my way of waking up and being able to turn the alarm off before the alarm actually goes off. But the fact it's so consistent, that being just a few minutes before, would suggest there's something going on in the brain somewhere that's well aware of what time it is. And you have to wonder whether that in itself is a distraction for the quality of sleep you're getting.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like, is that your body clock waking you up at the time? Or is it more the fear of the alarm clock of like, I don't know, maybe don't set an alarm. Like, say to yourself before you go to bed, my alarm is not set. And see if you wake up at the same time. Be interesting.
Well, it's irritating when I do set the alarm, but I rarely wake up to the alarm, let me tell you. And I normally wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Yeah, which irritates me, but I feel good. Okay. But it irritates me because I'm conscious that I know very well I haven't got my 7 to 9 hours sleep.
Yeah.
And that there are implications to that. But I don't drink caffeine. Yeah, we go to bed at 10 o'clock pretty much every night. There's no late nights in there, and I go to sleep instantly, no problemo. I don't fall asleep on the couch. I go to bed, I fall asleep. It's perfect. But I just seem to be the 6 hour guy, but it frustrates me. But I'm not alone. So if
I mean,
I if I wanted to,
Oh,
sorry,
sorry,
go
keep
ahead.
going. You
Well, I
go.
was going to say, I mean, I don't drink caffeine anymore. I haven't drunk caffeine for 5 years, to try and sleep better, and so on and so on and so on. I rarely drink alcohol, really. Actually, I've dropped into the whole Heaps Normal, the alcohol-free beer, which
Oh,
is
yeah,
just delicious.
that's
Pete
cool.
Pete Brennan's beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So, yeah, alcohol's not a thing. So, and I train a lot. I'm physically active, and I get
Yeah.
outdoors, and I get my sunlight, and I do all of those things. It's really frustrating, and I'm not alone. I know there's other people who, they go to bed with the best intentions, then just kind of wake up early, and then they're done. Once they're awake, they're awake.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. See, that's where I said it's individual too. If you're going to bed like at a decent time, you're sleeping as solid as what you know that you are anyway. Not necessarily, like it might not necessarily, and if you're feeling good throughout the day, then maybe that's your thing. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
but it's
you just
chronic,
live
isn't it? So I
life.
might just feel like I do, and I might think, yeah, well, I feel okay because that's how I feel. But actually, if I
Yeah.
was to consistently get better sleep for a week, maybe I'd feel amazing.
I would probably, it's turning into a bit of a consultation for you. I would probably suggest, and you might have already done it already, is just try going to bed an hour earlier than what you usually do, as long as you can fall asleep then, and see. So that'll push it out to 7 hours or something,
Yeah, yeah, that
and
would.
see how you feel. Like if you can fall asleep at 9 o'clock
Sure.
till 4, then
I'd be
you
I'd be
need more
happy to
sleep.
try.
So maybe you need to do that little test in the reverse. It's like, okay, so you're waking up, bang, it's 4 o'clock. Try and do it so that you're going to bed earlier, maybe like half an. Actually, I'd usually recommend 20 minutes earlier.
Right.
Maybe not like a big jump of an hour. Just go 20 minutes, another 20 minutes,
Sure.
like build it up like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that it is almost a consult, but actually, I think there's a learning in that. It's interesting for people to hear the kind of questions you would ask, the starting point, what the starting point typically is. I think that's important for listeners of this episode because I think so many people can relate to this as being one of the challenges in their life. And I know some people, I don't do it anymore. I used to, but I used to be that. Oh, I'm awake. I'll look at my phone and
Yeah.
engage myself. And I'm strict on that now. I don't.
Yeah, cool.
Because I know that once I do, I'm done. That's
Yeah.
it. The
Yeah.
brain's whizzing and I'm away. But so, I mean, in terms of the kind of questions you do ask when you're talking to a new, let's say you're in a consultation, and what are the kind of questions, just generally speaking, that you would ask around to give people a hint as to things they might think about as though they were being asked those questions?
Yeah. So what I would usually do in, say, an initial consultation, client fills in a really big health history form, listing medical issues, things they've tried in the past, symptoms, all that sort of stuff. And so what I really want to figure out first is, yes, we need to work on sleep hygiene, lifestyle, all that sort of stuff, anything that will affect sleep. But I'm also really I'm a bit of I am a detective. I want to find out, is there anything else happening inside your body that could be affecting your ability to go to sleep, stay asleep, or the quality of your sleep? And so some of those body systems that I would think about would be like your neurotransmitters. So serotonin is an amazing neurotransmitter for really good mood throughout the day, but also really important for sleep. And so sometimes, whether it's because of gut issues or chronic stress, or it's been a snowball effect of not sleeping and then serotonin gets worse and then you get insomnia. So figuring out, and this is all done via different types of like saliva, pee, poo, or spit testing to uncover if there's imbalances. Other areas I think about it, the hormones again. So you're just producing way too much cortisol and it's suppressing melatonin. Female hormones, I find like cyclical. Women often, if they have trouble sleeping, it will get worse, or it's more noticeable during PMS period time, and that can come back to like an imbalance of estrogen, progesterone. Detoxification is a big one. So your liver works the hardest, or it really switches on, ramps up between around 2 to 4 a.m. So if you're waking up at around that time,
Yeah.
there may be a hidden functional issue with your detox pathways where you're getting blockages when you're trying to clear toxins, or your liver's very sluggish and it's trying to work harder because it's not working very well. There could be nutritional deficiencies which are affecting your ability to detoxify. And I find people who have nightmares as well, like really bad nightmares, they're waking up at around that time. Almost all of them, when we've done testing, so we look at detox pathways via urine, almost all of them have really impaired detox pathways. It's crazy. Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people just live with it. They live with poor sleep and just go, well, I'm busy. It's what it is. I've tried.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, the long-term health implications are very real, aren't they? Very,
yeah,
very
for
real.
sure. I'm a clinical nutritionist also. So I initially got into this work as a clinical nutritionist. So I love food, but I would choose, if I had to choose between like really good food, which I love, like I love good, healthy, whole foods, or really good sleep, I would always choose the sleep, because I know if I haven't slept, I would feel way worse than if I've had a day of eating like McDonald's or something. Not that I've done that for a really long time, but you
That's
know.
right. Can't believe you dragged the Golden Arches into this conversation.
Oh no, Maccas.
We're talking about the major sponsor of the Olympics. Hmm.
Oh, that's crazy, isn't it? Far
Yeah,
out.
it is. But no, I understand. No, I mean, I think that's a valid point, especially for someone like yourself who has
Mm,
both the personal experience, of course, of eating and sleeping, but also understanding from a professional level the implications and impact of both of those, that you choose sleep.
mm.
Um, that's exactly right. We can last much longer without food than we can without sleep.
Yeah, that is
That's
true.
that's very
Yeah.
clear, and certainly there's a number of scientific studies out there that show our impaired ability to perform even the most basic tasks with not that much reduced sleep. Like if it's
Mm,
literally one night of poor sleep will have a bearing on your performance in the following day or days if you don't
yes.
then get that restorative sleep.
Yeah, there was
Um,
a research article actually when we were putting a couple of, no, actually it was last year, putting together a big sleep module for our clients. And so I was madly going through all the scientific research articles, but there was one about that. They tested, what was it? I think they tested a bunch of participants who hadn't slept that night at all, in comparison to a group of participants who over 3 nights only got 5 hours sleep. I think it was 4 or 5 hours sleep. And their cognition impairment was exactly the same, if not worse, with
mm,
the people who got sleep, but not much sleep.
yeah, sure. It's interesting. I was talking to fascinating subject. I was talking to one of the Australian Defence um, officer training team recently, and they were saying, that obviously a lot often on their basic training, it's if, I think in America it's called Hell Week, that kind of thing, where you just they're making sure the recruits are exhausted physically and mentally, and then are expecting them to both perform. Yeah, and I understand the logic of why they do that. They're breaking
Yeah.
people down so that they can build them back up, and
Yeah.
all of those things. But actually, when they were talking about officer training, well, actually, there's a huge educational component to that, and there's a sort of dichotomy, really, of expecting people to absorb and learn and embed that learning whilst they're in a
Mm,
fatigued and sleep deprived state.
mm,
Doesn't really make sense. So I know that there's certainly some studies going into that to see if that's really optimal
yeah.
from getting the best learning outcomes
Mm,
from the officer training. It's a fascinating subject, but
mm.
even as much as one night's bad sleep, I mean, it has an impact.
Yeah. And
And
then give these guys guns as well. It's like, whoa,
try guns and drones and all sorts of stuff. That's right.
grenades and
Also, lots of big toys. But yeah, I mean that's the reality, isn't it? Expecting people to perform at their peak and in some cases really make important decisions
mm,
whilst cognitively impaired um, doesn't make a lot of sense in the cold light of day. Uh,
yeah.
not to detract from the training or the work they do, and not at all. But for most of us in City Street, um, that decline in cognitive performance so rapidly, And if someone like me, just imagine if I didn't sleep so badly for the last X number of years. Yeah, I mean, I think about what would my output be, what would my performance level be compared to
Yeah.
where it is today. So yeah, I mean, it's a question we can all ask ourselves. So I'm conscious of time, Philly. So of course we are going to get to the good stuff, which as in the actionable stuff, I should say, not the good stuff.
The good
Um,
stuff. The good stuff is the science.
it's all good stuff. I mean, yeah, the actionable stuff. So it would feel cliche for me to roll off well, if you want to sleep better, I've read a lot about it. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I've spoken to you. I've spoken to other subject matter experts. And I think I know a lot of the answers, but I don't tend to do them, which is ridiculous. But for those who perhaps haven't dug into the subject, what's the general advice that you would give if you want people to start giving themselves a fighting chance of sleeping better and getting this quality restorative sleep?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say the sun is super powerful and it's free and it's readily available.
Yep.
So,
Sure.
we do, not always, but we do test melatonin levels. And if it is suppressed, people are always like, oh, get me on the melatonin tablets or whatever. And I'm like, no. We're going to use sun to rectify this because it's just as effective.
Yep.
And so what you would want to do is as soon as you wake up, now if it's at 4 o'clock and the sun's still down, that's a bit tricky, but when the sun comes up,
I've got 3 hours to wait until the sun comes up.
just like twiddling your thumbs. So you want to try and get outside
Yep.
for 10 minutes. Now I know and this is probably why, it's like, oh, that's so simple, but so why don't I do it? And I know it's kind of hard because, you're trying to get ready for work or your day or getting kids ready and having your brekkie. If you can get outside and even just eat your breakfast for 10 minutes, that's going to help just to reset. It sounds a bit upside down, but getting outside as soon as you wake up will help to increase your cortisol, which by nightfall will help to increase your melatonin production. If you can't get outside or it's just freezing because you're living somewhere where there's snow, then
Well,
find the sunniest
like
spot.
Tasmania or somewhere like that.
Exactly. I'm not doing this at the moment because it's so cold. But you inside, even if it's inside, try and find the sunniest spot in your house and kind of just be there 10 minutes, eat your breakfast,
Yep.
write in your journal, whatever. And then you want to try and match that to within the afternoon, being outside. And again, like ideally 2 hours before the sunset gets down. And I know we live in a technological world where a lot of people work inside. So that can also be a challenge. But honestly, if someone has really bad sleep issues and you're insomniac and you have no melatonin being produced, prioritize doing that and see what happens. So
it's interesting. When you were saying that, sorry to just jump in for a moment, but as you were saying, I was thinking, in the morning, making that, it's about making it a routine, isn't it? It's about making it a habit. Because to say, yeah, but I'm too busy because I've got to get the kids ready, I've got to do that. No, you're missing the point. We're talking here about your long-term health, your short and long-term health, about the quality of sleep and the restorative effect that has on your body. I think it's just important to come back to that. We're not trying to say, well, just create these new habits because they're a good idea. I mean, they are, but the health benefits are significant. And to be too busy, I think it was Tony Robbins who said, if you can't find 10 minutes in your day, you haven't got a life. And I think he's right. That's why I remember it. It sort of stuck with me. And it could be, if you've got kids, take the kids for a walk around the block for 10 minutes. Take the dog around the block. Just go and stand in the sun for 10 minutes. It's not that big a ask. Think about your days, practice some gratitude for those 10 minutes, whatever it is. Just find a way to build it into your routine, because just 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes, exactly. And we love creating or helping clients create morning and evening routines as well. And so I find that is that is the secret ingredient to success, is write it out, stick it up on your fridge or wherever you see daily, and just tick it off every day. It's like, I've done that, and schedule in those most important things either in the morning or in your evening routine. Because sometimes too, people it's prioritization, it's what's most important to you, but sometimes people just they literally just forget.
Sure. Yeah.
So having like a visual reminder of go outside in the sun for 10 minutes when I wake up, maybe like right next to your bed, it's just that thing that it's like, oh yeah, that's what I do.
And it doesn't take too long; it becomes a habit at the end of
Yeah,
that. And
it
that's
becomes
the
part
point.
of
Once it's
you
a habit,
and
it's
your
just what
life.
you do. I mean, that's the joy of it, really. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But you didn't mention lunchtime, by the way. We're just getting a little bit of feedback from a microphone somewhere.
Ooh,
There's a
is it
noise
mine?
in one of the microphones. I'm not sure why. Nothing's
Hello.
changed. Neither of us have moved. Um,
Oh,
gotta love technology. But you didn't mention lunchtime. I'm personally a great fan of get out the office, go for a wander at lunchtime. Yeah, eat my
yes.
lunch outside if I can. Um,
Yes.
is there a
The
reason why you didn't mention it?
so this is based now. I cannot remember the researcher or the sleep guru who there was research, like there was actual research to show if you do it like first thing in the morning, 2 hours um, before the sun goes down, will just help with that circadian
From a
rhythm.
pure
But
sleep.
also
So here we're
the
really talking about sleep. Yeah,
really specific, yeah. But then the more sun and the more like real light that you can get throughout the day, the better. So
yeah,
anytime you can get out for a break from work, get up off your desk, go outside for a walk, have your lunch outside. I'm a big fan
sure.
of having lunch outside, more so for my vitamin D and just for like my sanity and mental health. It helps me to
Absolutely.
unwind. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So talking about light too, I got my funky little glasses here. Don't know if you've heard of like the blue light blocker gadgets.
I
Um,
have. I mean, I have to say, they can be controversial depending on who you talk to as to whether they actually do anything or not. There's a lot to be said
yeah,
for there's no downside to using them.
there's no downside. Look, I think these were $80. I bought them from a company called Earthing Oz. So I did look around. I'm like, okay, I don't want to spend $500 on something that may or may not work, and
Sure.
but
No,
I also don't
absolutely.
want to
Yeah,
spend.
no.
But you can also get like $5 ones from eBay, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to get really crappy cheap ones that probably aren't going to do anything. So anyway, Earthing Oz. Now I'm not an affiliate with them, but I should be because I talk about them all the time. But I do like their
Sure.
company. I feel like they are trustworthy. Um, I wear them like honestly, not all day. I mean, these are things that you can use when you're on the computer all day. But if I choose to watch a Netflix or a movie or something at night, this is like my non-negotiable. I have to wear my like
Yeah.
dorky pink
Okay.
glasses.
Yeah.
And I do find that look, it's a combination of like if I have a lot going on and there's more stresses, that's where sleep can start becoming a bit off, and then like I back off on watching things at night or being on my computer. But I feel like they help. I
Good.
have had clients who they really feel like they help with headaches, not so much sleep, but headaches. Like when they use these regularly, they're not getting headaches from the blue light and the EMFs and stuff coming from
Yeah,
computers.
good. Look,
Yeah.
even if it's a placebo effect, it's an
Yeah,
effect.
exactly.
I'll take it.
Exactly. That's yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. There's no harm to them besides maybe just like a few dollars that
Yeah, absolutely.
they look kind of cool.
No, absolutely.
Um,
You mentioned you use the term sleep hygiene, and for me, as soon as I hear that, I start to think about the devices and
yeah.
the blue light and all of that. And I heard a great, I'm not sure who it was who I heard say it recently, but it was great. He talked about, people tend to reach for their mobile phone the second they wake up, and they're
Mm,
checking emails and they're doing this, and sleep quality aside, almost, he said that if you're checking your phone before
mm,
you're saying good morning to your loved one who's lying next to you, you really have to ask yourself what's going on with that. That really stuck with
yeah.
me. That really stuck with
Yeah.
me. And then he said, worst case, he said, if your partner's asleep and sleeps longer than you do, well, let them sleep because that's important. But try not to look at your phone or check your messages or emails until after you've had breakfast.
I like that.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
now
good.
do that, but it was really a habit break. Like I had to think about it. I would
Hmm.
instinctively reach for the phone and go, oh, no, 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 have breakfast first. And actually, it's a really nice routine that I've now introduced. So I was grateful for that advice. But um, sleep hygiene, how would you describe that to someone?
Yeah. So, well, before bed, like going back to the evening routine. So anything like phones, laptops, TVs. Ideally, you don't want to have all of that stuff on at least 2 hours before you go to bed to sleep.
How can you watch Netflix without looking at it?
Well, that's where I then sometimes compromise and I use my
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and
No,
whether
no.
they work or not, they feel like my conscience feels better.
But what would we do if we're not watching Netflix or looking at the
Well, this was the amazing thing. So Chris and I, my husband and I, created, it's called the 3-day detox. Sleep detox, sorry. And it's where, like, for 3 nights or 3 days, as soon as the sun goes down, we switched off everything minus the fridge. So we turned off every PowerPoint, we turned
right
off computers, phones,
modem?
lights.
Modem.
Yeah, modem. Wi-Fi is a big one. So
Yep.
I'll talk about Wi-Fi in a seckie. And we just lived by candlelight and gas. And so, you know, we'd be cooking dinner because last time it was winter time, so it gets quite dark here in Tassie in winter time. And so, you know, we just use candlelights to cook dinner. It was amazing. It was so, like, all four, we have 2 daughters, all 4 of us noticed massive improvements, both with getting sleepy early. Like by 8:30, I'm like, I'm ready to go to bed.
Brilliant.
Like, what the heck?
That's brilliant.
My oldest daughter, we've actually always struggled with her, which is probably why I'm also passionate about sleep, but struggled with her getting her to bed like at a normal child time. Sometimes, you know, it was like 10, 11 o'clock and she'd still be like,
right. Wow,
but doing
yeah.
this sleep detox was just an amazing insight into the fact that our poor little girl was just overstimulated by lights and things flashing. I mean, we turn off the TV and everything after, like, before dinner time, but it was just the lights. And the moment we put on those candles, she was in bed and asleep by 7 o'clock. And that had never happened ever in her whole life. Even as a baby, she'd be like 10 o'clock.
Right. Wow.
And so then, you know, that's quite dramatic. I've had other parents too do it with kids. I feel like just because kids are so sensitive to what's going on that it's more noticeable when people do the sleep
Sure.
detox. But for me and Chris too, we were going to bed earlier. It was nicer for the family because it's like, well, we can't, you know, we're forced not to do work
Camping
or, you
in
know,
the house,
other
isn't it?
stuff. It's like, what can we do? Let's play a card game, or let's talk to each other. Let's read books with the kids for 2 hours because there's nothing else to do. But it was really good. It was wonderful. And then I noticed too that in the morning and throughout that day, now again, like if I get a good night's sleep, which is pretty regular these days, because I prioritize it, but I just noticed, like, I just up leveled, not so much energy, but just mental clarity. It was almost like, it was just like, oh, I feel so bright.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head here in terms of making it a priority. That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is why we started with why it's so important to try and just help people understand why it's not optimal to just, well, you know, I don't sleep very well. It's just what it is, or I can get by on 5 hours. You know, that's because I'm a super trooper.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why we started where we did. Well, certainly the 3-day sleep detox sounds fascinating. And I was actually thinking about the reality. I was thinking, how would that play out in our house? Because it sounds wonderful, but we for sure have some, yeah, I think fairly normal habits in place, but that doesn't mean healthy habits in terms of watching Netflix and, you know, checking messages or emails later at night, that kind of thing. So I commit to you here, Filipa.
You know what I found really hard is just looking at my phone to look at the time, because that's
Right.
how we don't have a clock in our house, and I couldn't do that because my phone was switched off, and so I didn't actually even know what the time was. I think my daughter, I'm like, how did I know? Well, my daughter has a watch on her wrist.
There you go.
But even that, before you go to bed, well, what's the time? Oh, it's 10:15. I better go to sleep. You've already exposed yourself to an artificial light,
right?
That is going to suppress melatonin and increase cortisol.
Well, I use my phone as my alarm clock.
Yeah.
So I put it in flight mode at night, like it's dead in that regard. But yeah, yes, for sure. You're right. The last thing I look at is my phone because I would set the alarm on it. So boom, smashing myself with all of that, and it's pretty much the first thing I lean for to turn it off or to stop the alarm going off.
So some more. Do you want me to a little bit more on sleep hygiene?
Yeah, sure. Yes, please.
Because
Yeah.
I'm a big fan too of just creating the right environment. So create your environment for success, basically.
Yep.
And so create your room or your bedroom like a cave. So the caveman used to live in cave or sleep in caves. It was pitch black. So these are, and a lot of people may know this, but again, sometimes it's a nice reminder that just like block out curtains so that you can't see street lights, moon, all that sort of stuff coming in. Again, like we were talking about, like digital devices for the time. So I do not like the digital clocks that have like the red, that's just another exposure to light. There was a study too that showed that it doesn't even matter if the light is in our eyes or if we're exposed to it in the rest of our body. So they looked at a whole heap of participants. They put a little tiny torch underneath the doona next to the participant's leg, I think it was, and they showed that cortisol was higher and melatonin was lower
Wow.
just from that little light underneath the bed. So it wasn't even like
Wow.
yes. And so that's where light is so important in terms of trying to make your bedroom as dark as possible. Um, Air quality as well. So stagnant air, moldy air, that's going to stress out your body, going to affect your respiratory system. You might actually not even be getting enough oxygen to your brain when you're asleep. So trying to improve air quality. Um, we don't do it because we don't have fly screens, although there's no mosquitoes in Tassie this at time in winter time. But just even opening your window a little bit,
Yep,
just to let some natural air come in,
for
can
sure.
make the world a difference. And
Yeah.
plants in your bedroom as well. So looks pretty, but it also helps purify the air. Um, that is a
Fantastic.
whole, is that enough?
Oh,
I
that's
could
huge,
keep
man. No,
going
that's,
like
but
mum.
I love the fact that that's all very tangible. I mean, there's no reason why, if not all of that, most of that can't be a reality quite quickly without spending a bunch of money,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and would probably lead to immediate improvements for a lot of
Yeah.
people, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for sure. And kids, I know it's really hard because some parents have kids that have trouble sleeping, but like no night lights because that's just going to affect the child. Like it's going to make things worse in the end by
Of course,
affecting
I hadn't thought about
melatonin
night lights.
production.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good
And
point.
then some people have to get up to go to the toilet at nighttime too. So I just always encourage try to walk there in the dark and don't turn on any lights. Like most of us know our house well enough and like how to get to the toilet that you could probably just feel your way there. Because the moment you switch on a light, again, it's like, oh, it's sunshine, it's morning, I have to get up, and that hormonal production can go haywire again.
Sure. Yeah, no, really practical advice. Really practical advice. Look, I'm conscious of time, Philippa,
Yeah.
and we'll probably look to wrap it up there. But if anyone wanted to reach out and find out more about your 3-day sleep detox program, where would they do so?
Okay, I am going to put that on our website. I will send you the link to get it that you can
Okay.
that you
Sure.
can put in our show notes. I do have a PDF, so I'm going to. It was on my list of things to do to upload it onto our website. So
Oh,
if you
sure.
can jump onto our website, www.chrisandphilly.fm, but I'll send you a direct link to
Yeah, no problem.
the sleep
Brilliant.
detox PDF.
I will
Yeah,
certainly pop that in the show notes. But that's so Chris and Philly, all lowercase, one word, as the URL.fm for functional medicine, I would
correct.
imagine. Yes, there we go.
Yep.
So that's where people could reach out to you. And I know that you do amazing work with your clients. You get all sorts of wonderful results that are ultimately life-changing because the areas that you're helping your clients with, they impact their life profoundly.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
appreciate what you and Chris are doing. Appreciate your time with us here today. And
Thank
is
you.
there anything else you'd like to leave us with before we sign off?
Um, Thank you so much for having me. And I feel like the crux of what we were talking about really is like what is most important to you. Now, all the stuff we talked about, all good and well, but if you're not getting enough sleep and it's impacting your health, you'll get to a point where it's the most important thing. And you don't really want to get to that point, because that's when people kind of crumble and they're like falling apart. So look at this as preventative health. And for a lot of people too, like just having optimal health and a long and happy life is the most important thing. So try and focus on that as your end goal in terms of making these changes today, as opposed to getting completely burnt out and losing
Absolutely.
everything.
We want to be as happy and healthy as we can be for as long as possible, right? And that's
Yeah.
the big picture, most important things in life at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And for sure, to be too busy with work or too busy with any of those other sort of life distractions, necessities, no doubt, but to prioritize those over your health, it'll come back to bite you at some stage, I think is what you said. I mean, it just will.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you can't out-train a bad diet. If you're chronically sleeping poorly, then it's going to catch up with you. There is at some point there's going to be a debt to pay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, well, on that somber note, but on the upside, there's so much that can be done, and you can, anyone can start making improvements today, right? That's the point. You
Exactly.
can literally, there's so much good stuff that doesn't have to cost any money that can be implemented immediately, one step at a time if needs be. But that's what we've talked about, and certainly that's what we'll make available with the details of your 3-day sleep detox, which is really, I think, if anyone who's not willing to give a 3-day sleep detox a try, then they need to go back to, as you said, go back to really thinking about what's most important to them.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Filipa, thank you so much. I look forward to chatting next time.
See ya.
Take care.